Rain crashed through the rotted roof as Amanda clutched her daughter beneath a leaking attic hatch. Then, suddenly, the house fell silent. Behind the wood, something whispered, old music echoing from the darkness above. When she finally forced it open, what she uncovered had been hidden since World War II, but what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The morning after they arrived, Amanda stepped barefoot onto the splintered front porch, a chipped enamel mug trembling in her hand. The coffee inside was instant and bitter, but it was all they had. The house groaned around her like it hadn't been touched in years, because it hadn't. Wind swept across the fields, hissing through brittle weeds where crops once stood tall, and all she could think about was the sound of city buses, how even that chaos had felt like structure. Inside, Gracie used a flashlight to explore corners Amanda was too afraid to look at. "Mommy, there's something living in the walls," she'd whispered that first night, eyes wide beneath a sleeping bag that smelled faintly of mold and mothballs. Amanda didn't have the heart to tell her she was probably right. The air in the house was stale and heavy, thick with generations of dust, and something else she couldn't name. A kind of quiet resignation that clung to the furniture like an old curse. The neighbors were ghosts. A truck passed on the gravel road once every 3 days. No one came to welcome them. No pies, no hellos. Only Carl Morton, with his tobacco-stained teeth and gleeful disdain. "That thing's not a tractor. It's yard art," he'd said as Amanda struggled to haul the machine across dry earth. "She'll be crying back to Chicago in a month." His laughter was worse than cruelty. It was certainty. Amanda had lived through divorce, through pink slips and courtroom insults from a man who once swore to protect her. But nothing had prepared her for this isolation. Here, her struggles had no witnesses, no sympathetic friends with wine and reassurance, no bustling sidewalks to disappear into, just miles of empty sky and the echo of her own fear. The first time the roof gave out, it was during a midnight thunderstorm. Rain fell in sheets through a hole above the kitchen, splashing onto warped floorboards and soaking a stack of Gracie's drawings. Amanda stood there, numb, watching the ink bleed like open wounds. Later, by candlelight, she scraped canned beans into a dented pot and tried not to cry as Gracie asked if the farm was magic yet. Amanda forced a smile. "Not yet, baby. But maybe soon." In truth, she didn't believe that. Not then. All she had was a failing roof, a field of dust, and a child who trusted her more than she trusted herself. And that made the silence louder, the darkness heavier, and the failure feel permanent. The night the power went out, the house surrendered to silence so complete it felt holy. Wind pressed against the windows like a living thing, rattling panes and whispering secrets through warped frames. Amanda lit a stub of a candle and set it inside a chipped glass jar, its flickering light casting shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper like ghosts come home. They were sitting on the living room floor, her and Gracie wrapped in an old quilt, when the little girl suddenly tilted her head toward the ceiling. "Mommy, I hear music up there," she whispered, eyes fixed above. Amanda paused, her hand hovering over a book. She listened. Faint and tremulous, like a needle brushing a warped vinyl record, a melody floated down. Not a song, exactly, more like distant piano keys, soft and fractured. Amanda's first thought was mice. Her second was exhaustion. But her third thought, curiously persistent, was that it didn't matter. She needed to know. The attic door had resisted every time she tried it before. But that night, with the candle's light catching on rusted hinges and damp plaster, she found her anger outweighing her fatigue. With a crowbar and her full weight, She finally broke the swollen wood loose. The hinges shrieked. Dust cascaded like snowfall as the door groaned open. A wave of must and dry timber hit her. Then, silence. No music, just stillness. She climbed the stairs slowly, heart thudding. The attic wasn't empty. Stacked from floor to rafters were wooden crates, each marked with faded black paint. Property of E.K. The first lid creaked as she opened it. Inside, bundles of leather-bound journals, their pages yellowed and cracking at the edges. Another crate held blueprints rolled and tied with military ribbon, labeled Agri Pulse Engine, MKE, in her great-uncle's unmistakable script. A third crate yielded dog tags, medals, a photo of a young man standing beside an experimental tractor under a hangar arch stamped Fort Riley, 1944. And then, the letter. Its envelope was thick, sealed with wax, addressed simply, "To whom it may concern. If you've found this, it's time." Amanda's hands trembled as she unfolded it. The writing was firm, deliberate. Her great-uncle detailed the machine he'd designed in wartime, capable of revolutionizing agriculture, but buried in secrecy after a private corporation tried to steal it. "Only a Keller with backbone," he wrote, "deserves to wake it up." She read it again, then again. The storm raged outside, but Amanda didn't move until the candle burned down to wax and she could no longer keep her eyes open. She didn't sleep. She didn't even blink. Because for the first time since arriving on that broken farm, something deep inside her stirred. Not fear, not grief, something else. Possibility. The earth fought her every inch of the way. Beneath the barn's collapsed north wing, the ground was dense with debris, the bones of weathered timber tangled with rusted iron and sunken stone. Amanda dug with blistered palms and a crowbar, her arms aching before the second day had even begun. But she didn't stop. The machine wasn't just buried under rubble. It was buried under a century of silence, of secrets sealed by war and loss. Every bolt she unearthed, every beam she moved, felt like an act of resurrection. On the fifth day, her shovel struck metal, not pipe, not rusted wire, but curved plating, smooth and unfamiliar. She dropped to her knees, brushing the soil away with her hands. Her breath caught. The engine was there, just as the blueprints described, broad-bodied and riveted, like something from a future the world had forgotten. It looked like a fusion of farm tool and tank, inert but waiting, as if time hadn't eroded its purpose, only delayed it. Local mechanics wouldn't touch it. "That thing's a lawsuit," one had said, backing away like she'd opened Pandora's box. But then, one evening, as Amanda wiped grime from her eyes and Gracie sat beside her, fanning herself with a newspaper, an old Ford pickup rolled down the drive. A wiry man in a patched-up veteran's cap stepped out. "Hank Russo," he said, without offering a handshake. "I saw your little girl walking to Maynard's for milk in this heat. That's no way for a kid to grow." Amanda stared at him, wary. "You here to fix something?" "No," he said, walking past her into the barn. "I'm here to build something." With Hank's help, the machine began to breathe again. He read the blueprints like scripture, tracing lines with calloused fingers. He taught Amanda how to prime valves, clean rotors, rethread bolts. Gracie handed them tools with solemn ceremony. Day by day, the engine came alive, humming on test runs like it was remembering itself. Then came the drought. The sky turned white. Wells dried. Neighboring crops shriveled to husks. But Amanda's fields shimmered in the sun, her corn standing tall and defiant, lush green where everything else curled into dust. Passers-by slowed their trucks. Some stared, some prayed. Carl Morton didn't pray. He accused. Black market hormones. You think I don't know a scam when I see it? Amanda led him to the barn, opened the ledger, laid out the blueprints and patent letters like war medals. "This isn't a trick," she said, voice hard as steel. "This is Keller soil, and this machine belongs here." Carl left with no words, but someone else had been watching. 2 days later, the black SUV came. The men in suits didn't blink at the barn's chaos. They studied the machine like it was the Holy Grail. "We'd like to talk licensing," one said, "and we'd like to help preserve this place. Your uncle's work, your work, deserves to be protected." Amanda stood still, oily rag still clenched in her hand. Gracie, from the porch, whispered, "Mom, are we safe now?" Amanda didn't answer. But for the first time since arriving, the weight in her chest began to lift. Not with relief, something greater, vindication. The cameras arrived just before dawn, catching the first streaks of sunlight as they stretched across fields Amanda had once doubted would ever grow. Now they shimmered, rows of gold catching wind like sails, whispering through every stalk the story of a woman who refused to bend. Reporters set up beneath the oak tree where Amanda sometimes sat with Gracie to read by lantern light when the power flickered. But today, there was no flicker, only light. Amanda stood in front of the newly painted barn, her flannel sleeves rolled up, a streak of dirt still across her jaw. She hadn't dressed for the spotlight. She didn't need to. The land spoke for her. Inside the house, the attic had been transformed. Glass cases lined the walls, each containing a piece of her great-uncle's legacy. The journals, the blueprints, his medals, and the letter that had changed everything. A corner held his uniform, pressed and upright, beneath the carefully folded flag he had carried through 3 tours. Every morning, Amanda raised that flag on a pole hammered into solid stone. Veterans came from miles around, some limping, some silent, to place their hands over their hearts. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. The farm was no longer Amanda's secret war. It had become a living tribute. Local schools organized field trips. Children walked the same dusty path Gracie had once taken with her milk pail. Only now the barn stood tall, the engine inside cordoned off and humming under controlled demonstration. Teachers spoke of engineering, perseverance, and American legacy. But the children didn't remember numbers. They remembered the woman who'd smiled from the porch, a little girl beside her, and told them, everything good starts small, even courage. When Carl Morton came back, it wasn't with arrogance. His boots were clean, his hat in hand. He watched Amanda from the edge of the drive as she guided a combine across the field like it was part of her body. He waited until she climbed down and walked over. "I was wrong about you," he said. "We all were." Amanda wiped her hands on her jeans. She didn't gloat. She didn't lecture. She looked at Gracie, now spinning barefoot through the stalks, hair like wildfire against the amber sky, and smiled. "I had to lose everything," she said softly, "before I could understand what was worth keeping." That night, as the segment aired across the country, people watched from nursing homes, diners, and living rooms. Some cried, some cheered. Most just nodded. The widow farmer, they called her. But those who truly understood didn't see a widow. They saw a warrior who made the land remember what it meant to be alive.